Hey guys, welcome back to another Genshin guide. Today, let's talk about Rosaria or Childe, who is actually one of the less straightforward characters to play. Unlike traditional DPS, Childe is not really a main DPS carry, and instead is much more like a enabler or a driver. For example, in here, Xiangling is doing majority of the damage. However, Childe here provide Hydro, which enables Xiangling to do that damage. Childe is unable to do Vaporize reaction because he simply have too strong Hydro application, making him the aura all the time. For example, you can see this boss is constantly being affected by Hydro. On top of how his elemental skill work just make him not suitable at all as a main DPS. Because of that, Childe is generally played in a quickswap team either with Xiangling or official Beidou aka Firework Childe. You'll see that later. Childe's elemental skill have a couple interesting aspects about it. Tapping it will put you into melee form, which grants you melee attack that apply Hydro. However, switching character will force you out of the melee form, as well as putting your elemental skill on cooldown. The longer you stay in the form, the longer the cooldown will be when you exit. For example, in here, you can see that the cooldown at the top is much longer than the cooldown at the bottom. Because of this, it is advised that you only stay in the form for 7 to 15 seconds at most. In a quickswap team where Childe is commonly played and you frequently switch character, the cooldown is actually not a problem if you have good rotation. By the time you finish rotating through your character, your cooldown should be back up already. Childe's normal attack will also apply Riptide, which is basically this AoE Hydro attack here. Because of this, Childe have rather good AoE potential. Mobs that are clumped together can trigger a huge Riptide reaction, doing a lot of AoE damage. If you have stamina to spare, charge attack or 1-2-3 charge attack are your best combo. However, normal attacking is fine, especially if you're using a rust which only boosts normal attack damage. Childe Elemental Burst is a big Hydro attack that does a lot of damage, and usually you want to vaporize this attack if possible. The range form have bigger AoE, apply Riptide status to enemy hit, and regenerate some energy, while the melee form does even more damage and does a secondary damage if you are attacking target with Riptides. You can use the melee form to do big damage to finish off enemy, or just use the range form at the beginning to quickly apply Riptide to a bunch of enemy. For your talent, level your elemental skill first, followed by your elemental burst. Your normal attack, honestly, you can just leave this unleveled. However, if you plan on using his normal charge attack outside of your elemental skill form, then you could level this as well. Childe's normal form charge attack will shoot a Hydro arrow that apply Riptide and does quite decent Hydro damage, just like other bow user. But with good rotation, you will never have cooldown problem on your elemental skill, so this is why you can just skip it. Let's quickly go over Childe's Consellation, but I think they're quite bad. C1 Childe will reduce his elemental skill cooldown by 20%, however with proper rotation, cooldown is not a problem, so this is rather useless in my opinion. T2 regenerate you 4 energy when you defeat an enemy affected by Riptide. This because it requires to defeat enemy, and again I think this is not too useful. Your C3 is your standard 3 level increased talent. Consellation 4 is really good, however. Essentially what happens is you automatically trigger an additional Riptide every 4 seconds if your opponent is already affected by a Riptide. Basically, this is a lot of free Hydro application as well as free damage, so overall this is rather good. And I believe it also works even if Childe who is not on the field, as long as he has already applied the Riptide to begin with. Consellation 5, standard 3 level increased talent. Now Consellation 6 is interesting. A lot of people might think that, oh, with C6 I don't have elemental skill cooldown issue anymore, and so I can play main DPS on field Childe. But that's actually not true. Since Childe still cannot do Vaporize reaction, he's still much better played in a quickswap enabler team. And similar to C1, if you're playing quickswap and you have good rotation, you will never have cooldown issue anyway, so I actually think this is not that good at all. Moving on for the build. Starting off with your weapon, the 5-star weapon Skyward Harp is of course gonna be his best in slot. However, if you don't have Skyward Harp, the 4-star Rust is a really good weapon. pretty much coming into second, especially if you have high refinement. Know that rust only increases your normal attack damage, so please remember that do not use charge attack and instead only use normal attack. Otherwise, the Battle Pass bow is a good option. Doesn't do as much damage, but it have a really nice passive that lets you group mob together in case you're going for those good AoE. Otherwise, I just suggest you to use the prototype weapon for a huge amount of attack percent boost. Proccing the weak spot is not too difficult on Childe because you can just proc it using your range form and then entering your melee form, which make it a lot better than other bow which you can really effectively use, such as the Stringless or the Windblume Odor. For your artifact, Heart of Death is pretty much the way to go. It gives you a 45% damage bonus on your normal attack and your charge attack after you have entered your melee form. Now, keep in mind that the bonus only lasts for 15 seconds, but that's okay because you should never be in your melee form for more than 15 seconds anyway. Now, I'm aware that some people use Childe just for its elemental burst, because his elemental bursts have a lot of damage. So in that case, you could be running Nobilis and Heart of Death set, which gives you the highest damage on your elemental burst, and you could run a Stringless as well, which further increase your elemental burst damage, as well as provide you elemental mastery to do that vaporized attack. The 4-set Retracing Bullet could work as well, since it gives you 40% normal damage and charge attack damage when you're protected by a shield. In comparison, the Heart of Death only gives you 45 on your normals, so you lose 5% damage on your normal attack or 35% increase in shield strength, and could work if you're running him with like a Xiangling. However, keep in mind the damage you lost is actually much more than that, because the Heart of Death also provide you with Hydro damage bonus, which will work on your Riptides and on your Elemental Burst. So overall, the damage you do lose is a significant amount, however it is a trade-off for the shield strength. Your main stat are just a typical one: crit or crit damage on your circlet, Hydro damage on your goblet, attack on your sands, and for substat, of course, crit, followed by attack, followed by flat attack. You don't really need energy recharge at all as Childe. For your team comp, of course we have Firework Childe. Recently, I released a video on Firework which you could go check out. However, the too long didn't watch is you just run Fischl Beidou together with your Childe and just cast all their elemental bursts off cooldown, ideally with a 7-second rotation and no more than 15. As always, your last slot is a utility flex. Stuff like Bennett, Zhongli, or even Xingqiu are really good. So just depend on who you have, feel free to put them in. The other team that worked really well with Childe is to pair him with Xiangling and do a lot of vaporized Pyronado. Essentially, you want to use Xiangling's Pyronado and then immediately switch to Childe's, applying the Pyronado with a lot of Hydro Aura, letting the Pyronado do a lot of vaporized reaction. The Pyronado lasts exactly 14 seconds if you have Xiangling as C4, so it is the perfect time to switch off Childe as soon as the Pyronado ends. Unfortunately, Bennett is pretty much required for this team because Xiangling is rather energy hungry, and Bennett is really good at regenerating pyro energy. On the bright side, Xiangling can snapshot the Bennett buff, which gives you a lot of damage together with Childe. During Xiangling's and Childe downtime, simply spam Bennett's elemental skill to regenerate the energy and fill in the gap time. This is also why Childe Consellation that reduces elemental skill cooldown don't really matter because you have to wait for Xiangling's anyway. Similar to Firework Childe, your last slot is a field slot and you can put characters such as Zhongli or Xingqiu in and they'll work really well. The last team that worked with Childe is actually going to be a Perma Freeze team, with Childe being the on-field DPS supplying the Hydro. However, for this team, you're going to need a deployable Cryo, and Ganyu is the perfect candidate for it. Otherwise, Rosaria or Kaya could work really well as well. In general, I will try to run 2 deployable Cryo because this not only gives you the crowd resonance, but just also make keeping up cryo more reliably. Just like other Perma Freeze team, deploy your deployable Cryo like Ganyu or Rosaria, and then switch to your Childe to apply Hydro and Perma Freeze the enemy. This team doesn't do as much damage as the other, but it does give you the utility of Perma Freezing, so it is a trade-off. Now, you might be tempted to equip the Blizzard Strayer on your Childe because we're playing a Perma Freeze team. However, do not do that. just use the Heart of Depth set instead because it is much better, and you're better off leaving the Blizzard Strayer for your cryo deployable. For example, you can see I have equipped it on my Ganyu. In case you're not aware, the 40% critical rate still applies even if the character is not on the field. So Ganyu is still being benefited from the 40% critical rate by attacking an enemy who is frozen. And that's one of the reasons why this team is good and does a lot of damage, is because your background character can easily apply the Blizzard Strayer. Now finally, while not ideal, I know some people put Childe into their team just as a elemental burst bot. So for example, in this Venti Gene team here, the only purpose of Childe is to cast a Vaporize Elemental Burst with Bennett, and that's it, to do good damage. Some people also do this in their Mel's Ganyu team. For example, in Mel's Ganyu, you run Ganyu, Xiangling, Bennett, and then you just put Childe in as a 4th slot. You drop your Bennett burst, and then you just do a Vaporize Childe burst for a lot of damage, and that's it. You switch off and go back to your Ganyu. This is something you could do as well if you don't have a team suitable for Childe, because Childe is rather limiting and only really fits some certain quickswap team. I think Childe is definitely one of the least straightforward characters to play, because unlike other characters, he wants to be on the field and attack, but he's not the main DPS of the team. He's just the driver, the enabler for other party members like Xiangling or official Beidou. And because of that, in a Childe team, you want to invest in your other character first. For example, here you can see my Xiangling is very strong before you start investing into Childe. Because again, Childe by himself does absolutely nothing. Damage are coming from your party member, which is weird because generally when you get a 5-star character, you just want to invest into it right away. Veteran players who have multiple strong invested characters like Ganyu or Xiangling can easily draft a very strong Childe team. A new player doesn't have that, and so their Childe will not be as strong as other hyper investment characters like their Hu Tao or again their Ganyu. And because of that, when Childe first came out 4 months ago, it took a long time before people realized how to properly play and what's a proper playstyle is suitable for Childe. People tried to make him main DPS at first, but it just didn't work. This video took a bit long to get out, and I apologize. I was slightly busy dealing with my final exam, but a few days ago I finally graduated with my computer science degree. So moving on, I'll have much more free time to make video, and let me know what you would like to see in the comment. I may even try streaming on Twitch now that I have a lot of free time as I've graduated, so be sure to follow me even though I don't know I'll actually stream yet. If you're watching until the end here, I really appreciate it. See you guys next time.